This is a PowerBook 3400c, and it is the last PowerBook that was released before the G3s came out. So this is one of the first generation PowerPC processor architectures that Apple was using. And I picked this up as a lot. Came with some software, some books, things like that. It said it had a working battery, so that really piqued my interest. Now, the battery doesn't last forever, maybe an hour and a half, and it's probably dead already, even though it was charged. Or maybe not. Maybe it still has a little bit of charge in it. Sorry for the finger in the way. It does take a minute to boot up. These aren't exactly the fastest machines out there, although at the time this was the most powerful laptop available. And then when the G3 variety came out, that took that crown. No PC laptop could even come close in terms of the raw performance. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Raw performance is subjective, depending on what you want to do with it. If you're using this Mac to run Mac stuff that has PC equivalent, then it would probably run better on here than on a PC. But if you want to play, I don't know, let's say around that time, I think we would have had Quake. I don't think there was a Mac version yet, so it doesn't matter how powerful this is. If it can't play Quake, no one's going to give it shit. So, but what I'm doing now is I just want to show you guys that it's working. And normally I don't turn things on until I've opened them up to check them out first. This particular thing, because it was listed as working on eBay, I figured, okay, it'll be safe to turn it on. Now the hard drive is acting up, and I don't know if you can hear it clicking or not. Let me see if I can adjust the mic here. Yeah, so you hear that little clank sound. That's the head kind of getting stuck, and it's having trouble reading. It's basically on its way out. So one of my plans for this is to replace it with a compact flash to IDE adapter, and I have a compact flash card here that I picked up on Amazon. 16 gigs. It's going to be more than enough space. But the other thing that I need to do is replace the PRAM battery. The PRAM battery in here seems to work, but they do get that as they get older, and they could leak. Now, to find an official PRAM battery for this thing is expensive. I think the cheapest I found was like $50. But I find a similar battery, really hoping it's similar anyway, for I think it was like $7. I'll have to double check the pricing. I'm going to try this one. I don't know if the connector is the same, but I can always remove the old one and solder it onto here. But what I want to do is just open this up, just check for any leaky capacitors, make sure that the battery hasn't leaked, because if it has, I'll have to clean up all of that residue. But otherwise, everything works. Again, this isn't a performance beast by today's standards, but at the time it was, like I said, one of the best. Now, this came pre-installed with macOS 8.5. I think this came with 7.6. I may be wrong, but it came with 8.0, and I think it can go as high as 9 point something. There are hacks to get Mac OS 10 on here, but you don't want to run it on here. You don't even want to run it on the G3 version of this. It just doesn't perform very well. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down and take it apart and make sure that it works. So let's get that going. So I only really briefly read up on how to open this thing up, but it shouldn't be too complicated, maybe. I'm going to use a ice tray to hold the screws in because I'm out of containers that I usually used to keep screws in, because I've got so many projects that I've just kind of been working on, putting off, delaying, what have you. And so I just don't have anything to hold screws in, so I'm using a spare ice tray that I'm not using. I think all I'm going to need for this, though, is just my screwdriver kit. I don't need any spudgers, I don't believe, but we'll find out. So apparently what you're supposed to do first off is to remove the battery. Hoping this is getting on video. So there's a little button here you push in and just slide the battery out. And the fact that this thing still holds any charge, I think it holds maybe an hour, hour and a half worth of charge, but whatever. Replacement batteries are pretty expensive if you can even find them that still work. Although, according to this, I don't know if got 3 little, I didn't even know there was an LED indicator on here, but Still 3 out of 4. So now this is a lithium-ion battery pack, so I could theoretically disassemble it, replace the cells inside. Maybe I'll do that one day. I don't know. I'm not too confident in my skills at this early on. So now allegedly these are supposed to be T8 screws that I need to remove. These 3 here. This one also locking in the CD-ROM drive, which I believe is also the bay I would put the floppy drive in. Don't recall. I'll have to check. Oh yeah, so it would go right there. That's the other thing, is it came with CD-ROM and a floppy drive, so that's another reason why I picked this up. Wasn't too bad of a price. At the very least, I'm okay with it. Let's go ahead and remove these 3 screws. Yep, T8s. These secure the keyboard, basically, because you need to remove the keyboard to get to some of the internal components. They're supposed to be 24mm screws, and it appears that they are. There we go. Nice little, I think it's a 12x CD-ROM drive. Now, other than like this custom connector here, I believe internally it's just a standard laptop CD-ROM drive. I don't know for sure though, so make sure I take care of that. And now all I should have to do is flip this back around, open it, and the keyboard should come up. Maybe I should grab a spudger just for that, or pry tool. There we go. Carefully lift it, as there is a ribbon. Something is stuck. There we go. And have to back. The hinge on this is a little loose, but it holds, so I'm not going to knock it too much. I believe the RAM needs to come out before I can remove the rest of this keyboard and trackpad. I mean, I could probably reach in there, but I feel more comfortable if I removed the RAM. Now, removing the RAM, I haven't done this before. It's not like a standard, or apparently it's just that simple. So 128 megabytes of RAM, came with 16 on board, so total 144. So now I should be able to get at these connectors here. They're a little stuck. Maybe they're supposed to be really firm. That should take care of that. Now, I'm trying to remember what else I need to remove to get to the hard drive, because I believe it's under here. This is for the speaker cage. They used Kapton tape, look at that, or something like it. I don't know if it'll remove, though. Some sort of loose substance. It should just remove from what it appears, but who knows. And I broke the cable. Way to go. It looks like I'm going to have to solder that back in. Actually, is that some sort of loose substance, or is that like a corrosion? Can't tell. I'll have to do some research. But yeah, it looks like this cable either way is going to have to be soldered back in to the connector. For whatever reason they didn't glue it on, then this corrosion is holding it in place. The PRAM battery. Right there. That's what this is here. The Varta battery. And, well, a replacement looks like it's... Oh, I might have to resolder that back on because I've got that, so I don't really care then. I'm replacing that anyway. But it does look like those are connectors and they're corroded. But the battery itself doesn't look like it's leaked, so I'm not sure what happened there. Still, well, whatever. Now, this is the PCMCIA slot, so this armrest, I think, is next. Again, I don't remember, because I should have paid more attention. Also, have to be very careful with these plastics, because they're very old, and they start to get brittle. If you're not careful, you can permanently damage them. And getting replacements means finding another one of these. I don't know if I need to remove this, but I will just to get it out of the way. Now, the hard drive cage itself is supposed to have additional T8 screws, but because I can't actually get to it yet, I'm not exactly sure if it's going to require prying as well. Okay, then. It goes back up. And I think I broke this plastic clip here, which is unfortunate. Yeah, right there. Darn. I don't see anything holding it in place otherwise, so again, I'm not sure exactly why this is being so uncooperative. Well, at the very least, you all know how not to open this up. I'll just fold this upward, since there's not much else I can do at this point. Maybe I'll glue it back later. Although I realized that my super glue is pleated because it had completely solidified. Oh wait, that should go here. These are the ones that hold it in the cage. So if you're going to open one of these up, take precautions, read everything you can about it before just going in there willy-nilly. I mean, I did read, but not long enough because I'm impatient. Plus, I really wanted to get this sucker open just in case that PRAM battery is leaking. It doesn't appear to be, which is awesome. Okay, so that should be it there. Gently lift this. And this here. Okay, that's a little better now. Apple branded IBM hard drive. And it is a 3 gig model, which would make the CPU in here 240 megahertz. Definitely aluminum or that off. It's got to be metal because they wouldn't have a protective sleeve over it if it wasn't aluminum or magnesium or something along those lines. That should basically be it. Older laptop hard drives were much thicker. I want to say these are 12 millimeter. Newer ones are between 7 and 9. So we'll preserve that. Maybe I can grab an image of it at some point. Let me look at what of the board I can see. I don't know if I'm going to disassemble any further just because of damaging that. I don't see any capacitors that have leaked or blown or anything. I don't see any corrosion in any parts of the board that are visible and accessible. Nothing there for sure. So there is a another connector over here. That was for the RAM and hard drive connector, and that's it. The CPU is underneath this card, which this card controls the Ethernet modem port and the serial port for printers and Apple Talk. Nice about it is it's got a VGA port on there, so you can hook it up to an external monitor. I don't know if it does dual screen or if it's just single screen, but either way, that'll be nice because the screen on the laptop itself is a little dim, especially over time. The tube lighting that's in there, the backlighting, it doesn't last very long. So really bummed about cracking this. However, it doesn't seem to. Actually, it's acting more like a hinge now. So I broke it and it works. So the one thing that's going to drive me nuts is getting this connector off, because if this isn't corrosion, then it's some sort of glue, and that's really annoying. Can't even pull this one out at all. I mean, I probably could, but I don't want to break it. So I'll have to look and see if there are instructions on removing this. I didn't see anything for this specific battery. In fact, I didn't find anything on iFixit, at least, for the entire board, although there's probably a ton of tutorials out there in forums and maybe even YouTube, so I might take a look at those. But everything inside seems to be clean, so for now, I'm going to leave this be. Let me take a look at this battery here. Now, the battery that I ordered as a replacement, it's not an official Apple replacement. This is actually designed for either a light pen or an earlier laser pointer. I forget. But it is 80 milliamp, 7.2 volt, just like the original. Actually, the original is 60 milliamp, so that's fine. 80 would be better. Voltage you don't want to really mess around with too much. Although everything that I looked up said that it was 80. So I don't know if maybe Apple changed it at some point. Physical size, though, does appear to be identical, which is good. The cells might be slightly larger, but not by much. It'll still fit in here. Connected with double-sided tape, so fortunately I've got that somewhere. In terms of the connector, well, the connector will definitely not fit because they went with a 3-pronged connector, even though it only needed 2 leads. So that'll make things very interesting. But I'll figure it out either way. I should be able to make it work one way or the other. I may have to find another connector. Maybe I just do some sort of jumper wire, which may be ultimately what I do. One way or the other, this will work. So not too concerned with that. I mean, if it doesn't keep time, oh no. My main concern was more the drive and the data. Now, the drive this drive here, when I got the PowerBook, it was wiped and it was reinstalled from scratch. There's no personal data or anything on there, so there's nothing. I said earlier I'm going to try to preserve it, but there's really nothing to preserve on there other than macOS 8.5, which, okay, whatever. But yeah, we'll get this battery installed next. I'll figure out what to do with the connector, get the drive installed, and go from there. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, why did I want to buy a laptop this old anyway, other than to collect it? And the main reason was because of the fact that it had a floppy drive. It's a 1.44 megabyte floppy drive. However, it'll also read Macintosh formatted 800 kilobyte disks. And I think that if I put an older version of macOS on here, if it'll work, I could possibly even read and write 400K disks too. Although I don't have a need for the 400K disks, I do have a need for the 800K ones because my classic Macs have the 800K drives in them. I can't make 800K disks without this essentially. And what's nice about having a 1.44 megabyte drive is that I can copy images over from a PC onto a 1.44 megabyte disk, and then copy them off the disk onto the hard drive on here, and then use that to create 800K disk images. That's what I really wanted to do, because I don't have any working set of Macintosh floppies anywhere right now. I could order some, but I'm always leery about ordering floppy disks online because you just don't know if they're going to work or not. I've got some new disks. There was some new old stock disks sealed and everything. They should hopefully still work. But at the very least, I can try to get the data, get some data onto them, at least long enough to be able to format and install Mac OS on the compact flash card, and then have a working system. The other thing that I can do then is take the flash card out, hook it up to a modern PC, and actually probably a modern Mac. I believe Macs can still read this version of HFS. If not, then I'll figure something out, but I would be able to transfer software that way. Plus, it's got the Ethernet port in here, so at the very least, I can transfer software from there to here via Ethernet potentially, and then create disk images. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out the battery situation, figure out the drive situation, and we'll continue from there. So that's where I'm going to leave it for part one. Like I said, I have to figure out the battery connector situation. I'm not going to just start splicing things and everything, especially since the existing cable has some corrosion in it. So I'm going to order some new ones and then try to do some splicing that way. At least that way I have a brand new cable connected. And as far as the drive situation goes, I'm just going to use the CF card like I planned. I'm pretty sure somewhere in the collection of CDs I have an install of Mac OS, but if I don't, try to locate some online, get that going. But for now, that's all I've got. If you liked today's video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up, and feel free to subscribe if you haven't yet. If you didn't like the video, well, you know what to do. Hit the thumbs down, but please leave a comment below as to why, so I can use that to try to make improvements in future videos. Thanks, Al, and I'll catch you later.